Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Five Things. And if it's your first episode for season three, Chetty is on vacation, so we'll be joined by our guest host, who I'll introduce just shortly. And I just want to say, they say it's kind of corny to wear a band shirt to go see the band that you're watching. And our guest today is tied to the shirt that I'm wearing. And he kind of plays a little part into the formation of Nerdbox, but we won't dive into that today. So our topic for today is going to be five classic films older than 50 years that you should check out. So I'll introduce our guest host in just a bit.
I am inevitable.
With us today from the Scene Snobs, it is Mick Manhattan.
What's up, everybody? I'm glad to be back. Dave, thanks for having me. I'm so excited for this one, even though I hate you for choosing this list.
This was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. Oh my God. You said before 1950, and I'm like, there's so many movies. It's like my top five. I had to throw out all of the mega popular Academy Award winners and just roll with it and go with ones that I really truly adore for myself.
Yeah, so I would imagine your honorable mention list is probably going to be pretty long.
Yeah, and even that I had to cut down because I was like, I can't keep going.
Yeah, I had to stop too. All right, with us today, as I mentioned, a little spoiler there, is the man, the promoter, and the creator of Monster-mania, and that is Mr. Dave Hagen.
Hi, guys. How are you?
Great. Welcome, sir.
Glad to be here.
It's great to have you here. So you are the founder of Monster-mania. We've had you on our other show with Donna Jean. But, hey, why don't you plug away at some things that you got going on for the remainder of this year?
Wow. Okay. Our next show is Monster-mania Con 50. Wow. And that's August 12th to the 14th in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. And then we return to Hunt Valley this year for our September 30th to October 2nd show. And then we return to our first convention center type of show. We had our first one there last year in Oaks, Pennsylvania, the Greater Philadelphia Expo Center. So it's our first times doing, actual convention center type shows instead of hotels. And that show will be November 11th to the 13th. We had a great time there last year and looking forward to return again.
All right, so we're going to jump into our list, and in case everybody doesn't know or that they forgot, how we do this is we go around round robin style, and we start with our guest. We start at number 5, and we go all the way up to number 1. A little bit different this season is we're saving our honorable mentions if we have them for a future episode. So we'll tune back later in the week to see what our honorable mentions are. And with that, let's dive into number 5. Dave, what do you have at number 5?
Okay, well, I'll tell you, this was tough to put together. Going back 50 years trying to find films, and because I'm such a horror fan, like immediately the list that comes to mind for me is all horror. But for these, I tried to keep it not so much horror. So my number 5 film, you hear the phrase all the time, they're gaslighting me, he gaslit them or whatever. I'll bet you 90% of the people that use that phrase don't realize that it refers back to the 1944 film Gaslight.
Are you suggesting that this is a knife I hold in my hand? Have you gone mad, my husband? Or is it I who am mad? Yes, of course, that's it. I am mad.
It has Charles Boyer. Ingrid Bergman and a very young Angela Lansbury. I won't give away the ending or the surprise, I guess you would say, but the title refers to back in the time when houses, before electricity, houses used to have gas that would come into the home. And the house I grew up in actually had this. There was like a pipe that came out of the wall, and you would turn it on and light the gas, and that would be your light before electricity. So in Gaslight, that plays a role in the film. I don't want to give it away, but it's basically about a woman wondering whether she's losing her mind or not. And the one thing that occurs throughout the movie that she starts to piece together, and I'm really trying not to give away anything.
It's so tough to
the way gaslights worked. If you had a gaslight lit in one room and you in another room in the house, if they turned on the gas to light their light, your light would flicker or dim a bit. So that plays a major role in the film. But it's definitely not a comedy. It's a drama, I guess, mystery type of thing, where Ingrid Bergman is wondering whether she's going insane.
Yeah, Gaslight's one of those movies that I absolutely think everybody should just definitely check out if they haven't. It's an odd one because it seems to be more popular now because of the phrase, whereas back then it was a very popular movie. You know, those are big stars.
Yeah.
I have not heard of it, but I am definitely interested in seeing it.
I tried to put together an eclectic list of sorts of different genres because you've made this way too wide and I'm going crazy. So some of these are just some of my favorites that I really think everybody must watch. Number 5 is Night of the Living Dead. It's in my top 10 movies of all time. I mean, I don't think I have to convince anybody to go see it. If you haven't seen it, what are you doing? You're probably watching Walking Dead and not understanding where it came from. Night of the Living Dead by George Romero is just truly one of the most fantastic horror movies of all time. It still holds up to this day. I can watch that over and over again and not have any issues. You know, there's not a lot of movies I can say that about.
Yeah, I love that film since I was a kid. That was one of the first films I introduced to all of my kids, bringing them into horror. It's like, all right, well, this is one of the ones that is in the top 10 that they got to start out with.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
All right, so my number 5 goes back to 1958. It is Steve McQueen's first leading role, and it is The Blob. Steve and his girlfriend trying to warn their town of this gelatinous jelly type creature that is coming into their town, and it engulfs everything that it touches. It is just an amazing film. Also had a remake in the 80s, but the classic I think still holds up to this day.
Yeah, the remake was good, but nothing can touch the classic.
Yeah. I mean, they did such a wonderful job. That whole movie theater sequence alone is still like used today to teach courses.
This is one of my mom's favorite films. I remember watching it with her on television all the time. It's 1945's And Then There Were None. It had a really great remake in 1964 called 10 Little Indians. So, and then it was remade again in 1974 with two Hammer stars, Oliver Reed and Herbert Lom. But my favorite of the three versions of it is probably the 1945 version. It's got Walter Houston in it. He won a supporting actor Oscar for Treasure Sierra Madre. It's based on the Agatha Christie movie. It's kind of like if you've seen House on Haunted Hill. It's similar to that, but without the horror aspects of it. 10 people go to this chalet in the Alps, I believe it is, and they're trapped there till a certain date, and one by one they start to die.
Yeah, that's something that I definitely would have to check out. I actually, when I was younger, instead of reading like kiddie books, I would read Agatha Christie. And now with the revival of her in cinema today, my kids love the current movies. So yeah, I definitely think I should go back and check that one out.
I wouldn't be surprised if they wind up doing another remake of it.
12 Angry Men from 1957. Sidney Lumet. Brilliant. It's just, I mean, it's 12 men in a room, and they tell this whole beautiful story of justice.
A man's life is at stake.
I'm just saying it's possible.
And I say it's not possible.
And what it means, and the different aspects that play into it, and all of the characters. That's some of the best acting, hands down, ever in that movie. I mean, because you get so many different character actors in there playing against Henry Fonda, who arguably one of the best actors of all time.
Yeah, it's a great movie. They're debating on whether Amber Heard really. That would be the 7 Angry People, I guess that one would be.
If the turd is real.
Yeah.
I think we all grew up at a different time with movies, right? We didn't have all the channels that are out there. We didn't have YouTube. We didn't have cable, right? So like come Saturday and Sunday is really where you got to catch up with a lot of these classics, right? Because if you were lucky enough, you may have a VHS player, right? I got one when I was 13. So I didn't have something that I can watch movies. It's just whatever was on those Sunday shows. And one of them starred James Cagney. So this is my second oldest film on my list. And it is The Angel with 30 Faces. But this movie, essentially, what it's about is there are 2 kids that grow up in New York in a tough neighborhood, Hell's Kitchen, and they sort of go their separate ways. One, played by James Cagney, which is Rocky, he goes down the life of crime, where the other person, Jerry, he becomes a priest. And we fast forward in their life, and we get to see what happens when Rocky comes out of prison and he wants to go back into a life of crime and bring Jerry into it.
Asking questions again, huh? Listen. Some of these days you're going to stick your nose and you're going to get something in it.
Well, I only thought it was...
Shut up! Now look, you don't know anything about this, see?
And one of the things, even to this day, that sticks out is the ending of the film. And it's one of the things that I've seen most talked about over the years is, you know, how James Cagney acts the end. And I won't give it away, but I just one of my favorite films from back then.
If you like that movie, then you should watch White Heat. Because Cagney playing a gangster in White Heat is some of the best acting I've ever seen in my life. Especially that whole prison scene. He finds out his mother died, and just how he goes. Trust me. If you like that movie, you'll like White Heat.
I've never seen either of the 2 of them, so I got to watch them.
Yeah, if you like those, you know, mob type movies, you'll definitely like this. I just remember as a kid, and I grew up in an Italian neighborhood, and a lot of that stuff was in theme back then. James Cagney was like on the pedestal back in the neighborhood. And when you watch some of the movies, it's like, yeah, he should be talked about a lot more these days, and some of the films and the movies that he portrayed in.
I couldn't make this list without including it. 1948's Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein.
Yes.
It's many people's introduction to horror movies, I think. At least it was for my generation. It was on TV a lot. People get to see the monsters, and it's not so scary for kids, but man, it's a great movie.
Back. Yes, master.
Give me some Dracula.
Glenn Strange as Frankenstein looks great. Bela Lugosi returns to the Dracula role for the first time since he first started as Dracula 17 years before that. The comedy is great. Lon Chaney Jr. is the Wolfman. In one scene, he plays Frankenstein because Glenn Strange broke his ankle during the filming. But it's just a really, really funny movie. To me, it's the best of Abbott and Costello movies. and at the same time, it's got the monsters in it. It's just, for me, it's if I had to take 5 movies to an island, the old desert island thing, that would be one of the 5 I would take.
Like you said, this is another movie that you introduce to your kids when you're younger and you want to bring them into horror. I think it's a great introduction. And then they get to see some of those classic characters like Dracula and Frankenstein in there. And then Abbott and Costello, what geniuses of comedy back then. I don't think there'll be another pair like them, to be honest.
My number 3, it's a thriller. It's from 1948 from Alfred Hitchcock. It's called Rope. His first movie. His first movie where he shot it in sequential order, and he played it out like a play. And he pitched it as a movie that has no cuts. Now, it does have cuts. They're very, very few and far between. They're very subtle. But he did it in such a way where, like, okay, we're going to zoom in on this guy's jacket and then pull out, and like you're in, he's in the next room. It's such a great tale of these 2 sociopathic college students who murder somebody in an apartment and hide the body. And then they have a dinner party inviting their criminal investigative professor to the party. And then the cat and mouse game begins of them trying to get away with it.
Wow. Is it all over?
I'm afraid so, Rupert.
Oh, what a pity. In another moment, you might have been strangling each other instead of a chicken.
Mr. Goodell, really?
No, but a man's honor was at stake. And personally, I think a chicken is as good a reason for murder as a blonde.
It all takes place in one place, one apartment. It's played out like a play right in front of you. And it's just beautifully done. And I think it's very underrated for the Hitchcock movies.
Yeah. Possibly my favorite Hitchcock movie. And the great thing about that, like, as you said, it was, filmed in sequential order. They show you this super large window, with the cityscape, outside, and you as the day goes on in the film, you see, like it goes from daylight to dusk to nightfall, and that was like that, like it's almost like the window is a character in the movie.
Yeah.
It's such a great film.
And this is the one that was on a previous list. It's in season 1. It features Jack Lemmon and Tony Curtis. It is Some Like It Hot from 1959, which also features Marilyn Monroe.
That's a great choice.
Thank you. So for those that haven't seen it, I think it's kind of gotten lost by the wayside. I don't know if you can even do this film today. But essentially, you have 2 guys that witness a mob hit, and they go on the run. And how do they do that? By disguising themselves as women, and they hitch a ride down to Florida with a female jazz band. And Tony Curtis's character, Joe, he falls head over heels for Marilyn Monroe, and he knows he can't blow his cover by saying, hey, look, I'm really a guy. So essentially what he does is he takes on the persona of another character, which is an oil tycoon, and he woos her. And then there's some stuff that goes down in Florida that I will not talk about. But that movie I saw as a kid. I've loved it ever since then. And I've introduced it to my own family, and they have all enjoyed it as well.
I've never seen it. I've heard so much about it, but I've never actually sat down and watched it.
You'll laugh your ass off the entire time.
Yeah. Jack Lemmon is just so damn good.
I'm engaged. Congratulations. Who's the lucky girl? I am.
Number 2 is my favorite horror film, and I'm going to cheat again because I really like the remake as well. The 1931 Bela Lugosi Dracula. By far my favorite horror film of all time, but like a really close second for me is the 1958 Christopher Lee Hammer horror Dracula. Both of those, it's the same character portrayed completely differently. I know everybody says, nowadays that, Hollywood has lost its creativity and they do remakes all the time, but Hollywood's been doing remakes forever. But like the 1958 remake of the 31 Dracula, two completely different movies, two completely different kind of actors portraying the same character, and both films are just absolutely outstanding.
They're all my honorable mention. Well, especially Dracula and Frankenstein, but Frankenstein was almost on the list only because of the set pieces and the filmmaking.
Oh.
I mean,
Right?
now taking nothing away from Dracula, it's just that opening sequence in the graveyard is probably one of the best dressed sets I've ever seen in my life. I absolutely adore that.
Yeah. Yeah. Those movies were pure art.
Yeah.
The sets, everything.
And the lab setup, all the electronic stuff in Frankenstein.
Oh, yeah.
Phenomenal.
For a set to be that involved, like, it was just everything. It was fantastic. Then I can put Young Frankenstein up there too.
Yeah, that's an excellent pick. Yeah, Christopher Lee, excellent Dracula. Bela Lugosi, excellent Dracula. For me, Bela Lugosi is always number one for me, and then followed by Christopher Lee at number two. It's just, yeah. I think, Dave and Mick, you said it best, right? The sets from all these films back then, these characters were amazing, and they were just larger in life. I think Dracula, for me, wouldn't be my tops because I think it moves a little bit slower paced than some of the other films, but I love it just as much as I love the other ones.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's kicked everything off. It's just there's nothing that it's fantastic. I'm going to blabber about it because I'm trying not to, because it's such a great pick. The Day the Earth Stood Still from 1951.
Oh, good one.
We have come to visit you in peace.
The reason I went with this one is because I feel like it helps spark the sci-fi genre in such a way that it never sort of turned back. Like, everything before this in the sci-fi world was well done and a lot of fun, but this was like the turning point where it was like, sci-fi is legit something in the movies that can be done and taken very seriously. It's got such a heavy message to it. It's such a great adventurous tale. You have a fish out of water element to it. You have a I want to say for the times, but really it still happens to this day, man destroying itself and what we must look out from the outside world looking in. And just even the look of it still, like I said, is inspired so much great sci-fi going forward, the exception of the reboot.
Yeah, that's a great pick, and just another iconic scene in there with the robot standing out inside that ship just stands out to this day. All right, so my number two, I'm going back with Alfred Hitchcock too, and it's 1963, The Birds. And I'm surprised at how many people today have not seen that film because it is just amazing. And it stars Tippi Hedren, who is the mother of Melanie Griffith and the grandmother of Dakota Johnson. And just her portrayal in that film alone is great too, because she's such a strong character. But for those that don't know, The Birds is about a bunch of birds attacking people. And to even see the special effects that we used then, it's a lot believable than I've seen in movies that have come out afterwards where they've tried to replicate that.
Yeah. And it really opened it up to a whole new genre. Like, I mean, animal movies is huge. I was on a show not too long ago discussing animal attack movies and, some of our favorites. And The Birds really is what kicked that off. Not that it didn't exist before, but not to the magnitude that they did this. And he did it in such a way that was so believable for the time. That was like, there were people out there throwing rocks at birds.
Yeah.
Oh, that phone booth scene. Holy moly.
Oh,
fantastic filmmaking.
Oh, yeah. And then you have the scene where they're leaving the schoolhouse and you hear the kids singing, and you have just the birds perched all over. Such intensity, and it's just a tenseful moment watching that, and it's still scary to this day. And I know some people that I've described that scene, they're like, nope, don't want to see it because that just sounds frightening, and it does, it holds up.
My favorite movie of all time is Humphrey Bogart's 1941, The Maltese Falcon.
What is it? The stuff that dreams are made of.
Huh? I caught on to Bogart late. You know, everybody had always praised him, and when I was younger, you couldn't, other than Frankenstein movies, you couldn't make me sit down and watch a black and white movie. And then I finally sat down and watched Maltese Falcon. And I know everybody, when they think of Bogart, they think of Casablanca, but my favorite movie of all time is The Maltese Falcon. Bogart is phenomenal. The cast alone, you know, like Sidney Greenstreet, absolutely. I didn't know anything about him until I saw him in this movie, and then I went in this whole binge of Sidney Greenstreet film watching. He's great in it. Peter Lorre is phenomenal. Mary Astor is she's kind of like the love interest. But they're going around trying to find this Maltese, this bird statue that is supposed to be worth a fortune.
Men and women hunted this evil bird. But every story has the same ending. Murder.
A lot of deception and everything throughout this movie. Just great acting, based on a novel by Dashiell Hammett. Twists and turns that you don't see coming. Just my favorite movie of all time.
It's such a great choice. It's on my honorable mentions only because the film noir that I chose, like, it just squeaked it out a little bit, and it was lesser known, I think, than the Maltese Falcon. So I was like, I'll put this on the list, just something different. But I have a Maltese Falcon statue upstairs. Yeah, I got it from a bookstore in Burbank years ago, and my wife was just like, well, can we put it somewhere else? I'm like, no, this stays out. It's the Maltese Falcon. It stays out there. I really think that this should be seen by anybody who's a movie fan. And it's Double Indemnity from 1944. Wonderful film. Fred MacMurray stars in it. He plays an insurance adjuster who gets into it with this housewife and like starts having a bit of an affair. They plan out this murder so that way they can get the insurance money, but there's a lot more to it, and I'm not going to give it away. But this is a fantastically played movie, well written, well directed. The look of it is fantastic, still holds up to this day, and the story is just top.
I have not seen that.
I have
not even heard of that one.
It is truly fantastic. It shows up on a lot of lists, but I don't think a lot of people tend to watch it because Fred MacMurray was not the star that like a Humphrey Bogart or like a Spencer Tracy and such were. But you know, he most of the people say go watch him, you know, in that movie. Like, you know, you go back to old, they're like, no, go watch Double Indemnity. It's the best.
That comes to my number one. I said this is kind of my sellout pick, but it is a game changer. It is King Kong 1933.
Great.
The things that they've done in that film, it changed the entire industry. You know, it's 20 years before Godzilla. You know, the amount of work that they put in just to move King Kong's hands, I think that took like weeks just to film that one scene. So I think it's probably even better than all of the remakes, honestly. I don't care for the one in the 70s. I don't care for the one in the early 2000s. It's just too long, the one in the 2000s. And then Kong Skull Island, that's probably the closest one I would put to number two with that one. But yeah, King Kong 1933, everybody knows who King Kong is. So this is the movie that you should check out. And to see the cinematic stop motion and how they used it back then and how it's evolved to today is just amazing.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it far surpasses any of the other movies that came after it. You know, it's Kong wise. He had a personality in that one that is as much as you can do with CGI and modern technology with filmmaking. The version of King Kong in that like has a true soul that the future movies just don't have. You know,
I'm just gonna add that. It's essential watching if you're a horror movie fan or a movie fan.
Yeah, and I love Godzilla, but this one's still number one with a bullet over all of those movies, hands down.
Well, the only thing I would argue is yes, compared to the American version of Godzilla, but that Japanese version of Godzilla is hands down one of the best movies ever made. That deserves a lot of people haven't seen it, and I think they should.
Oh yeah, Gojira. So that's our list of 5 movies you should check out that are older than 50 years. Some of these are forgotten. Some you never heard of. I know there's a couple that I didn't hear of. But you definitely want to go check these out because these are masterpieces that are almost getting lost in time. Now, once again with us, we have Dave. So Dave, if you just want to give us a shout out one more time of things that are going on coming up for you at Monster-mania.
Oh, okay. Again, we have the August show, 12th to the 14th in Cherry Hill, Aliens reunion, Scream reunion, and a bunch of other people. We have the Hunt Valley, Maryland show, September 30th, October 2nd. We have the show at the Convention Center, Greater Philadelphia Expo Center in Oaks, PA, November 11th to the 13th. Like I said, each show is its own entity.
Mick, if you haven't checked out the Scene Snobs yet, he's been on the show several times. We've been on his show as well. You need to go check out the Scene Snobs and see all the stuff that he's doing for independent podcasters and independent filmmakers on his channel as well. So, Mick, plug away.
Thank you, Dave. So yes, I run the Scene Snobs. We are a couple of knuckleheads who have a lot of fun doing what we do. This is my 11th, his 12th year podcasting, but we started the Scene Snobs as our own thing less than 3 years ago, and we've run with it ever since. Now we have about 6 shows. You can check out the YouTube channel, but make sure to check out the Scene Snobs podcast, where we kind of embrace absurdity. We love movies. We love all things geek, and we just kind of run with it. But we talk about the things that many people aren't talking about. So go to thescenesnobs.com, check it out, see what we have, and just have a really good time with it because we try to entertain above all else.
Yes. And as always, for the 3 of us, I'd like to thank all of you for joining us. But it is important to like this video, share this video out, because it helps us broaden our audience so that we can continue shining the spotlight on not only independent podcasters or horror conventions or independent filmmakers, but there are other artists that we've had on our channel too, or stunt actors. So definitely like our channel so that we can continue to grow this and shine the spotlight on the indies, and we can support our local businesses as well. So this has been Dave from Nerdbox saying thank you very much, and I will catch you in the next episode. Mick, any farewells?
Just want to say thanks for watching and keep supporting.
All right. Dave, you can close this out with a goodbye.
Just wanted to say thank you guys for watching. Thanks for being part of this. Really appreciate it, Dave. It was a pleasure to do this.